Tomorrow is futuristic if you're going to get on that sort of high horse. This game is not futuristic. I'm sorry, it's not sci-fi, should I say, because that's what you're talking about. If you're going to get on that high horse, we've had technically 3 sci-fi games. I don't count Black Ops 2. Because it's still somewhat grounded in reality. And the tech is stuff we had at the time in 2012. As laughable you may think it is, it's still technology we had in 2012. Unmanned drones, etc. And yeah, we did have robots too, before you say anything. Hence why we had Ghost Recon Future Soldier as well. It was the same thing. And that's when Tom Clancy was still alive. Shit. But yeah, futuristic is not a setting, that's just a time preference. Which I always keep saying to people. And Black Ops 3, in my opinion, is not... sorry, Black Ops 2, should I say, is not futuristic. It's still a grounded reality. It's sci-fi, is the word you're looking for. And to say that Infinite Warfare went too far, where you could shoot fucking bees out your hand in Black Ops 3, is disingenuous, because Infinite Warfare is more grounded than Black Ops 3. Yeah, you're in space, but it was still a naval game. You were part of the US Navy, but in space. Black Ops 3, you could shoot bees out your hand. To say that game's better than Infinite Warfare is stupid and more grounded is no, fuck off. And to say they did too many quote-unquote futuristic games is stupid. When there have been more Modern Warfare games and more World War II games in the past. It's dumb. The reason why they did futuristic stuff is because you complained of the boots on the ground stuff being boring. And I hate using that term boots on the ground because it grates me. But to say that Infinite Warfare is stupid when you have fucking psychic cyborgs that can shoot bees out of their hands and Black Ops 3 is ridiculous, and you like that game more than Infinite Warfare? When Infinite Warfare's reality is more grounded than Black Ops 3's? I'm sorry, your argument loses leverage a bit. Because I like the ridiculousness of the nature of the Call of Duty games, and I'm fine with Black Ops 3, but to argue to say that Infinite Warfare is stupid when Black Ops 3, the game that you quote-unquote like better than Infinite Warfare, where you can shoot bees out your hands, and you can make people vomit with your mind, and you have cybernetic augmentations, it's ridiculous. I'm sorry, compared to Infinite Warfare looks more sane than Black Ops 3. And it does, because it's basically a naval war, but it's in space. That's all it is. Your argument loses a leverage a bit. Or completely, actually. I'm not saying you shouldn't have to hate a setting. I'm all for that, but to favour Black Ops 3, to say it's better in terms of setting, and say Infinite Warfare's setting is unrealistic and stupid, is disingenuous. Because Infinite Warfare's setting is rather grounded, and to be honest, if you really look at it, that's probably what would happen if we were to colonise planets. You're bound to have separate factions that go, no, fuck the Earth, to put it in layman's terms. Because I found Black Ops 3's campaign quite ludicrous in a good way, but I just thought, this is not grounded at all. But I still liked it.
Shut it down, kid. No, don't do it. You'll blow the stock. Stop.
And before you talk about Advanced Warfare, those exosuits actually exist.
Flare stacks off. Stay clear of the derrick. It's about to get nasty up there. Roger that. We're clear. All right,
That was still grounded,
stay front.
because those exosuits do exist in real life. They're still in prototype phases, but they exist. Because they field tested them in Afghanistan years ago, but they only have like 8-hour battery life.
Get down.
They don't make you double jump by any means, but they do give you extra strength to hold things. But I do get a bit fed up of people dictating like what's quote unquote realistic and what's not. It's just like, well, if you're going to be like that, Black Ops 3 was completely ludicrous compared to Infinite Warfare. Having psychic cyborgs is ridiculous, and yet people like that more than Infinite Warfare? I'm sorry, you lose in terms of your argument. The Infinite Warfare scenario is more believable than Black Ops 3. It's a naval conflict based in space rather than just being on the sea. And you play as the Air Force of that navy, but in space.
Merrick, we secured a helo for exfil. Spooling up now. Check. We're 2 miles from the command room. Coming up on the north side. We'll be waiting for you.
Sorry, I just get a bit fed up of people bashing Infinite Warfare when it doesn't quite deserve it. When in fact it gave us more content in the first few months than Call of Duty World War II did. Call of Duty World War II has. And people who bitch about leaderboards are stupid. Who gives a crap about leaderboards? I'm sorry, unless you're in the competitive market, who cares?
Merrick, we're on station. Ready for target. Copy that. Just keep an eye on us. Command center's up ahead. Move it. Contact northwest. I see one. Taking fire. Taking
I feel like I'm one of the few that likes oh fuck this, who likes Infinite Warfare.
movement.
because the game's not bad. It has a really, I think the problem is because Infinity Ward, oh fuck this, Infinity Ward decided to focus on single player rather than multiplayer for once since, I don't know, Call of Duty 4 or Modern Warfare 2. Instead of the bloody multiplayer, which Raven Software did themselves, which people seem to forget these days. The head studio do not work on the multiplayer these days. The head studio work on the campaign, and they have, I don't know, Raven Software doing it these days. Shit. And that's what people seem to bloody forget. It's not the head studios doing the multiplayer these days. It's not like 2009, 2008, 2007 where they had one studio doing everything. I mean, Advanced Warfare had Hymen Studios and all sorts working on it. Shit.
Get those MGs down!
Raven Software is the main people that do the multiplayer of most Call of Duty games these days. And they did the World War II multiplayer too, as well. Shit. And Raven Software know what they're doing with a first-person shooter. I don't know why people are so shocked, like, oh, they've been really good. It's like, well, they've been doing it for 2 decades. They've made some of the best shooters ever. They made the Soldier of Fortune, Hexen. They even did their own version of Quake. They did Quake 4, which was really good, despite some critics thinking it's not bad. Sorry. God. This difficulty is not making me talk properly. They made Quake 4, which most critics hated for some reason, despite being the last traditional shooter of the era, alongside Fear. But yeah, this is the thing that people need to realise, that these days Infinity Ward, Treyarch, Sledgehammer, they work on the single player, they do not work on the multiplayer. Yeah, they have their community managers overseeing it, but they will not have them working on them. They generally have Raven Software, whoever, working on the multiplayer, or Vicarious Visions. Hence why the game feels completely different from the single player.
Get those MGs down!
It was a similar thing about Medal of Honor 2010, where they had DICE working on the multiplayer and Danger Close working on the single player. The games were completely different. Because the multiplayer felt like Bad Company 2, whereas the single player just felt completely different. So you can see why I defend Infinite Warfare, because they purely try to make it like a single player game. And they did, successfully. With branching missions and all sorts.